Hi friends, welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm going to be working with some long grain rice. I'm going to show you how to make it in the pressure cooker and on the stove top, plus a couple extra dishes that you can make with long grain rice. So come join me and let's get started. To cook long grain rice in a pressure cooker, you need 1 cup of long grain rice, 1 3/4 cup of water, and 1 teaspoon of butter, and then a few pinches of salt. If you're watching your cholesterol or sodium intake, you can omit the butter and the salt. Stir that together, put your lid on, put it on the rice setting, and then start. All right, the timer went off on this, and I am going to let the steam out. I'm sure this is a big no-no, but this is how I do it because I don't like everything getting all sprayed and wet. Be very careful with this because steam does come out and you can burn yourself. I just kind of drape it over and just let the towel absorb the steam. Use that. This makes it really sticky. Sometimes I like to add a little bit more water to it. Just a couple of tablespoons. That's how you make long grain rice in the pressure cooker. Next, I'm going to make it on the stove top. In a medium saucepan, add 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water, 1 teaspoon of butter. Omit that if you need to. If you're going to make plain rice, you can add 2 to 3 pinches of salt. I'm going to make seasoned rice, so I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of powdered bouillon. If you have the cubes, you can use cubes. You can use beef bouillon or chicken bouillon. I have the chicken bouillon powder, so that's what I'm going to use. Because I'm using 2 cups of water, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of powdered bouillon. If you want to make seasoned rice but you're cutting back on sodium, they do have the low sodium bouillon, or what I usually do is just do half of the bouillon. So instead of 2 teaspoons, you would just add 1 teaspoon. I just realized I'm supposed to boil the water and then add everything. That's okay. This will work too. I'm just going to turn my heat on high and bring us to a boil. All right, it's starting to come to a boil. I'm going to stir it. I'm going to cover, turn the heat to low, and let it simmer for 15 minutes. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer, but we're going to start with 15. It's been 15 minutes. We'll take a look at it. And there's still quite a bit of liquid in there, so I'm going to let this cook for another 5 minutes. All right, it's been 5 more minutes. This is looking really, really good. You could serve this as a side with any kind of poultry, beef, or pork. And that's how you cook long grain rice or seasoned long grain rice on the stovetop. Did you know that long grain white rice is actually good for years? As long as you store it properly, like this airtight container, it'll last for years. Brown rice does get a little rancid, so I would use that. Honestly, I've let that go about a year, 9 months to a year in an airtight container, and it's fine. But the white rice will last for years. So don't worry if you buy like the 25-pound bag from Sam's Club. As long as you have it in a proper container. Mine's bigger than this. I actually have a food safe bucket for mine. It works. It's fine. But we use rice a lot, so I'm not really worried about it going bad. I'm going to make some creamy broccoli cheddar rice. In a large saucepan, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of olive oil. If you have canola or vegetable oil, that's fine too. And then I need 1 small onion diced. I do not have that, but I have some onion flakes, so I'm just going to sprinkle about a tablespoon or so. 1 teaspoon of minced garlic. I'm going to turn my heat on high, saute for 2 minutes, and stir occasionally. Then I need 2 cups of chicken broth. If you're making this vegetarian, you could use something like this roasted garlic. You could also use the chicken bouillon powder or cubes, and then just add 2 cups of water and then 2 teaspoons of this. I have some chicken broth from my freezer. Bring that to a boil. All right, this is coming up to a boil. I'm going to add 1 cup of long grain white rice. Stir that. I'm going to turn my heat to low and then cover and cook for 20 minutes. I'm going to stir this occasionally and then add more water if needed. If you would like to use long grain brown rice, you could do that instead of the white rice. But at this point, the brown rice would have to cook for 45 to 50 minutes. And then everything else in the recipe is exactly the same. It's just the brown rice takes a little bit longer to cook. All right, it's been 20 minutes. I ended up adding about 1/3 of a cup of water just because it was dry and I didn't want to burn the rice. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of butter, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4, that's pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of salt and 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. And then 1/3 cup of either milk or more broth if you have it, or water. Milk will make it a little creamier. I'm just gonna stir that. Just mix it in just a little bit. The butter's probably not gonna melt all the way as I'm stirring. And then I'm just gonna cover this and let it cook for 3 minutes. If you wanted to add some smoked sausage, you definitely can. I have some hot smoked sausage. You can just slice them up and add to it when you add your broccoli. I'm not going to, but you could. All right, it's been 3 minutes. I'm gonna add a splash more milk because it's starting to stick to the bottom, and I don't want that to happen, so just, good enough. And then I have about 1.5 cups of chopped broccoli. This was frozen, but kind of thawed now. Stir this. I'm just gonna let this cook about 4 more minutes. I ended up adding another 1/3 of a cup of milk. Again, you could use broth or water, that's fine too. All right, now time for the good stuff. I need 1 cup of cheese, and whatever cheese you like. I have sharp cheddar, and do I really need to measure? I don't think so. There we go, that's probably about a cup. Just stir it until the cheese is melted, and then it's ready to serve. Again, you can always add some sliced smoked sausage or some cooked chicken. That would be really good in here too, and then you have a 1-pot meal. And there's creamy broccoli cheddar rice. I'm going to make rice pudding. In a medium-sized saucepan, I'm going to add 2 cups of cooked rice. You can use long grain rice or instant rice. Then we're going to add 1.5 cups of milk. And put that together. And 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And then 1/3 cup of sugar. We're going to cook this for 15 to 20 minutes and stir occasionally so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the pan. It's been 20 minutes and it still looks kind of thin, so I'm going to let it cook another 3 minutes and we'll see where we're at. All right, I actually let this cook an extra 5 minutes, so a total of 25 minutes on a medium heat. And it's thick and looks kind of creamy, so that's what we want. Now we need the rest of the milk, which is 1/2 cup. And then if you want raisins in there, you can add those. I do. And then a beaten egg, and stir it really good because we don't want scrambled eggs in our rice pudding because that would be gross. So we're going to mix it in really well. And then this is going to cook for 2 to 3 more minutes after you stir it in. You're going to want to stir this occasionally too in those 3 minutes because it's going to spit out at you otherwise. And you'll burn yourself. All right, I let this cook for 3 minutes, and then you're going to add butter, 1 tablespoon of butter, and then your vanilla. And then we're going to shut the heat off. Take this off the heat. And then you can stir in some cinnamon if you'd like. If you don't, it's fine like this too. I'm going to start with 1/2 teaspoon. I can't remember if I go a little bit more or not. I like cinnamon in it, so I think that looks perfect. 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon is just enough. Then we're going to let this cool about 30 minutes. This is what it looks like after 30 minutes. You can serve this as is, or you can divide it into small containers, refrigerate, and then serve later. Thanks for joining me today. Do you guys have a favorite rice dish or a favorite way to make your rice? Let me know down below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.